So I was scrolling through Instagram the other day, and one of the people I follow is a man named Flet Forge. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He's in Scotland, where he makes a lot of like traditional like Scottish knives. Really cool work. I'd suggest checking him out. I'll leave a link if I remember. But one of the things he showed was a Scottish dirk forged from a farrier's rasp. And I've done that with knives, so mostly Bowie knives and stuff. I think those are pretty cool. Very American, which is where I'm from, obviously. But he made a Scottish dirk. I'm like, oh, that's actually really cool, and I love the design. He also proposed the question of whether that was done historically, because here in America, we do have a long history of turning files into knives. He mentioned the American Revolution, it was done. I haven't seen any examples of that, but I mean, I most likely was done. The American Civil War was done a lot. There's tons of knives from that era that are obviously made from files. The old buck knives that are really popular, which even though they're not nearly as good as they used to be, were originally made from files. So it's done here a lot. And I would assume they've been done in other places because honestly, no matter how prized a good file is, it's going to dull, it's going to wear out. And you can only sharpen them so much before they kind of just aren't usable much anymore. So I would assume that making a knife would be a logical conclusion, especially because I've seen many examples in history of especially more like peasants and, you know, poor groups that form militias and small militaries will take just random tools and forge them into weaponry. So I would think that it would have been done, but I mean, doesn't mean it has been. Either way, I thought it was really cool and decided to make my own. This is a lot longer than a lot of them because I used the entire farrier's rasp, which is what I like to do. You get a pretty big knife that way. Honestly, this is more of almost a small sword than a dagger. You could use this as a dagger, but that just feels really awkward, honestly. It'd be easy to just cut and thrust with it. And it's more of what I prefer, but either way, I thought it was a cool concept and decided to make one and really like how it turned out. So, honestly, hope you enjoyed the video.
Okay, so I got this nice and forged out. You know, before I hit record, I probably should have looked up how big the Scottish dirks were, because this is pretty big. I have a thing with rasps that I like to use as much of the steel as I can without cutting any pieces off. Just, I don't know, that's what I like to do. I'll definitely have to cut in the tang here a little more. Didn't make quite big enough. But this makes a pretty big knife. I mean, I guess some of the ones I've seen could be fairly big. So that probably won't be too big of an issue. But what I'm going to do is, again, cut that out, kind of profile a little bit better because it is a little wobbly. Clean it up a bit. Might try to leave as much of the spine as I can, at least a little ways down, so it still has that kind of like, let's see, get the camera to focus. Okay, it's not going to focus that well. It's going to get grainy. Oh, there it goes. Kind of has like the teeth from the file. Might leave those. See what I can do anyway. But then, of course, grinding my edge. I'm going to leave this. God, my camera doesn't want to focus. Get my hand out of the way. Going to leave this rough, obviously, because I think it just looks pretty good, especially with the, you know, kind of aged look of it. And should be it. Shouldn't take too much. This stuff is, again, these files make good knives, but when you remove the temper of them before you reheat treat it, they actually sand and grind really easily. So hopefully this won't take too much. And I don't know how much you can tell, so you really can't because my camera doesn't want to focus. But the tang isn't quite straight to the point, so before I get too far doing anything else, I'm gonna have to, you know, straighten it a little bit. But that shouldn't take too much. And then, of course, you know, get the whole thing. Actually, before I do that, I'm gonna have to get the handle ready. Put like a prime metal disc here that I'll have to forge into place. Something for that. Not sure how I'm gonna do that quite yet, but I'm getting there. Okay, so let me start that over. So I skipped a couple of steps in, well, my usual video. Usually I would tell you like, oh yeah, here's what I'm gonna make for the guard. I have these two holes drilled in, I'm just gonna start cutting it out. I skipped that, it's filed in. This slides in mostly. What I'm gonna do is heat this up. Oh, wow, focus. That doesn't want to focus now. I really need to get some better lighting in here. I hate daylight savings time. Ironically, by the time you're seeing this, it might be closer to daylight savings time again, based on my upload schedule. Funny how these things work. either way, so I'm just gonna cut it off probably about here, give myself a little bit of room, and then heat up in the forge, and then just hammer this in until it fits perfectly, because there's still a little gap. My camera, oh, hey, there it goes. Focus just enough to where, you know, it doesn't quite fit, but close, gives a little bit better fit and finish, obviously. Then once you get that done, I'm gonna take some wood, 2 pieces as I've been doing, 2 pieces of hickory, obviously. We're gonna put a hole drilled in, heat up the tang. I'm gonna give it a nice burn all the way through, have that fit. Actually, a piece of wood might be almost perfect, or a piece of metal might almost be perfect. Nice. I like when things work out like that. Anyway, gonna burn that through and then heat treat my blade. So, yeah, nice. Okay, now that I got my blade heat treated and basically everything's done except for making the handle. So I've got my just kind of steel space here. This will be rounded off along with the wood here when it's done. Narrowed up a bit just for proportion. Got a bolt as kind of a placeholder that's gonna be rounded off, hopefully. So basically all I have to do now is just sand, grind, file, do whatever I can, saw, chisel, whatever I decide works to make that the shape I want. So I'm gonna basically remove it off here and just freehand most of it on here. I kind of got my rough estimate here for where the steel is, and I'll just kind of finish it up with a belt sander from there.